Hello everyone, it is Reese here, and in this video I want to talk to you about the types of assessments that you're likely to encounter at university, give you a brief run through of some of the sort of main recurring things, and offer some advice on how you might want to think about them. So before I start on particular types of assessment, there are two words that you're likely to hear in whatever degree, whatever sort of type of assessment it is, and those words are formative and summative. And so what do they mean? Formative is essentially a practice run. It's a chance to sort of try out an assessment, and it doesn't count. It doesn't contribute marks. It doesn't contribute towards your final grade. It's a chance for you to sort of try ideas, to practice writing or filmmaking or whatever the assessment type is, and get some feedback on it that you can then apply to the actual assignment, typically referred to as the summative assignment. Summative meaning that they count, they are worth marks, they sort of sum up to your final grade. So if you hear formative, think of it as a practice. It's a chance for you to sort of try out ideas, thoughts, technique, etc., with no stakes whatsoever. It's just a chance to get feedback. And the summative assignments are the ones that actually count towards the grade. Essays and written reports are really sort of the standard in terms of higher education assessment. It is you making an argument, making a case, using information that you have learned and memorized, or you might have access to a open book next to you, but using that information to construct a compelling case, a compelling argument, some compelling and sort of convincing the person who will be reading your work of the points you're making, convincing them that you've done your research, that you've understood the sort of the context of the immediate source, also the context of the secondary material and the wider landscape. I'm going to do a later video on essays and essay writing techniques, but generally a good essay is one that is clear about the point it wants to make, clear about the argument that it wants to make. It's clear that you've done the work in sort of understanding the primary source, and it's clear that you've gone away and proactively engaged with the secondary material and thought about it, not just how to use it in itself, but how to challenge it, how to fight, how to sort of engage with it critically down the line. And of course, if we're talking standards, the other main standard is the exam. So traditionally, you're going to a big exam hall or you do it online, and you're given a paper with a bunch of questions, and you answer them to the best of your ability. I'm going to do a later video on exam prep, but generally it is sort of revising, preparing well, so you know the topics and the things that are likely to come up, understanding your material. It's reading carefully and knowing carefully what the exam wants you to do. Does it want you to answer everything? Does it only want you to answer one question? Knowing all of that. And then just sort of trying to keep your calm and sort of performing well with the specific things that the exam is asking you for. Exams, although they can be quite stressful, are not generally traps if you put the work in advance. I know sometimes it's sort of a bum question that gets you, but normally you can sort of prepare very well for an exam and set yourself up well for success. I will come back to you in a later video about that. Presentations and posters, so oral presentations. You address a bunch of people, be it a single examiner, be it a wider audience, with a presentation to hand or just you, where you present an argument or you present something to them. It might be the case they ask questions, it might be the case they don't. But that really is a thing. This is an assessment that is built both around you knowing your stuff and sort of how you perform in the sort of in front of the audience. And similarly with posters generally are you condensing the material, condensing an argument, condensing a project, whatever, into a confined space dictated by the size of the poster, striking that right balance between essentially coming up with something that someone could look at and understand everything. And that is the challenge of a good poster. Posters generally are more aligned with science subjects than they are with art subjects, but the best posters are the ones where someone could look at it and immediately understand exactly what the point of the work is. Increasingly, there is a turn towards group work as an assessment, and so this is you and a team of however many students, and it is. You're given a project, a task to tackle, some sort of process to go through, and you are marked on how well you as a team work together. And the group work is rarely a favourite, it must be said, of students. Um, it is often the case that working in a team of, let's say, 6 people is a challenge that comes with many, many bumps along the road. But there's sort of a personal benefit in learning to work with others to deal with those challenges. And the assessment really sort of gels on how well you as a team have collaborated, how you've cooperated, and how you've brought your individual strengths to the surface. So a good group work project is one where sort of everyone pulls their weight, and one where everyone's strengths are manifest throughout the project. Some modules, some courses will assign points, they will assign a fraction of marks for participation or for attendance. You'll need to attend a certain number of lectures or seminars. You'll need to contribute in class if there is sort of an associated team space or Moodle space. You'll need to post something there. Tutors are always very clear with that. And generally, these are quite easy marks to get because you just need to turn up. You need to sort of essentially take part in some sense. The kind of things that really you'd hope you were doing anyway. Um, but yes, it's always worth knowing if there are sort of marks for attendance, for participation early on, and making sure that you get them. Increasingly, there is a turn towards more creative forms of assessment, and the ones that I think you're likelier to see, sort of generally, um, are sort of creating podcasts or creating videos. And normally, this will require you to sort of engage with a topic and present it in a different way. A podcast about a topic or a theme, making a video essay or making a video about a theme. And these are a chance to sort of demonstrate that you can manipulate technology and convey information to a general audience, to whoever you sort of imagine might be listening to or engaging with the material. And so with those kinds of briefs, the key thing to think about is the brief that you're given, is to think about sort of what you're meant to do in terms of time limits, in terms of what info you're meant to convey, and also what audience you're advised to think about, or if you're given free rein, what audience are you thinking about? The kind of person generally that is imagined to be listening to a general podcast, say, is going to be someone very different from sort of an academic essay. So imagine that person in your head and then make the resource to cater for them. Reflective assignments, these are generally a chance for you, it's not you sort of coming up with content so much as it is you reflecting on the assignment you've done, reflecting on something that's happened throughout the module, reflecting on a particular text or prompt, and trying to engage with it critically, reflectively, to sort of think about what you've learned from it, what you've taken from it. If you were to do the work differently, what would you do differently? So it's you thinking about you as a learner, you as a scholar, you as a person, and thinking about sort of how you personally have engaged with the work or the materials that you have, how you would engage with them differently with the knowledge you now possess at the end of whatever assessment you've done. The last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is sort of the heftier assignments, the dissertations and the theses. And so generally these come towards the end of an undergrad degree and then in postgrad degrees. And they are, to an extent, extended essays, extended research projects. There's a chance to dig into a subject in increasing amounts of detail, and sort of the higher the level that you are, the more detailed, the more independent research, and the more drawing on deeper readings of materials and more engagement with secondary material is relevant. But broadly speaking, the actual process is the same. You approach it kind of as you would an essay or a research project, in that you have a question and you learn the context around that question, and then you present your findings, your argument, you address it. I'm going to do a video down the future on thinking about how you'd come up with a question, how you'd address it. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Ring a bell, which I think is on YouTube, and which will let you know when my videos appear. The last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is sort of the heftier assignments, the dissertations and the theses. And so generally these come towards the end of an undergrad degree and then in postgrad degrees. And they are, to an extent, extended essays, extended research projects. There's a chance to dig into a subject in increasing amounts of detail, and sort of the higher the level that you are, the more detailed, the more independent research, and the more drawing on deeper readings of materials and more engagement with secondary material is relevant. But broadly speaking, the actual process is the same. You approach it kind of as you would an essay or a research project, in that you have a question, and you learn the context around that question, and then you present your findings, your argument, you address it. I'm going to do a video down the future on thinking about how you'd come up with a question, how you'd address it. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Ring a bell, which I think is on YouTube, and which will let you know when my videos appear.